Think about that simple, almost magical act of asking an AI chatbot a question. You type a prompt, you hit enter, and the answer just appears. It feels completely weightless, right? Like it's just software floating up there in the cloud. But if we zoom down from that digital abstraction, the reality of that single question is anything but weightless. It's grounded in a massive, water-chugging, diesel-burning, land-hungry reality, the physical data center. Welcome to this explainer. Today we are going completely behind the screen to uncover the rapidly growing global resistance to this exact infrastructure, a pushback known as the anti-data center movement.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with Section 1, the cloud becomes heavy. Then, Section 2, AI makes the invisible visible. We'll look at one movement, many accents in Section 3, followed by the demand for accounting in Section 4. We'll explore how the industry responds in Section 5, and finally, dive into public versus private compute in Section 6. Let's get started.
All right, Section 1, the cloud becomes heavy.
To really understand this movement, we have to fundamentally shift how we view the internet itself. For years, the tech industry sold us on this brilliant piece of marketing called the cloud. It makes saving a file or scrolling your feed feel completely detached from physical space, like an illusion of lightness. But the heavy cloud is the actual reality. For the town that receives a data center, that digital warehouse arrives as an immediate, heavy claim on local resources. We're talking about rows of servers that run incredibly hot, which requires massive cooling machines. We're talking about backup diesel generators pumping out nitrogen oxides, strained local aquifers, brand new electrical substations, and massive transmission lines cutting right through neighborhoods. The anti-data center movement, or ADCM, begins the exact moment residents realize that the abstract digital economy has a very real parcel number and a very real exhaust pipe.
Moving on to Section 2, AI makes the invisible visible.
Now, data centers obviously aren't new, but the way we perceive them has radically changed over the last few years. The crucial point here is understanding the shift from what our sources call pure AI to Gen AI. Pure AI is the older regime. Think of the algorithms curating our social media feeds, search rankings, and ad targeting. It silently organized our attention, and while it required huge data centers, its physical footprint was largely hidden behind the convenience of your smartphone screen. But then, Gen AI exploded onto the scene. Generative AI models that create text, write code, and generate images require astronomical amounts of computation for both training and inference. Suddenly, a single chatbot prompt became a highly visible strain on the power grid. An image generator literally became a cooling problem. Gen AI essentially gave the hidden infrastructure of the cloud a massive, very public body. It ripped the cloud out of the sky and planted it firmly in our backyards as a towering industrial building.
And if you want to understand the sheer scale of that physical body, just look at this number, 945 terawatt hours. According to the International Energy Agency, this is the projected global electricity consumption for data centers by the year 2030, driven heavily by AI. To put that into perspective, that is nearly 3% of all global electricity use. When global AI demand scales up like this, it directly and violently strains the local substation down the street. It turns global technological ambition into a local infrastructure crisis.
Which brings us to Section 3, one movement, many accents.
What's absolutely fascinating is that while this global demand curve is universal, the pushback is intensely local. The ADCM travels so well because it adapts to whatever local public resource happens to be buckling under pressure. Take Ireland, for example. There, it's all about electricity bills. Data centers consumed a staggering 22% of the country's metered electricity in 2024. 22%. Meanwhile, in Spain, the focus shifts to water and river politics amid severe droughts. Down in Chile, specifically around Quilicura near Santiago, the movement is fighting to protect depleted wetlands from tech hub clustering. And in dense urban environments like South Korea and Japan, the fight is about proximity. Imagine apartment residents battling the incessant fan noise, the heat exhaust, and the visual bulk of server farms sitting right next door. The exact same hyperscale architecture triggers completely different local emergencies depending on where it's built.
Honestly, the emotional core of this entire movement is captured perfectly right here. Tu nube seca mi río. Your cloud dries my river. It's a slogan from Spanish water campaigners in regions like Aragon, where companies like Amazon have proposed massive expansions. This phrase travels powerfully because it instantly translates an abstract technical concept, the cloud, into a sensory, localized loss. It forces the tech industry to look at the watershed, not just the spreadsheet.
Section 4, the demand for accounting.
It is vital to understand that the people protesting these facilities are not cartoon Luddites out to smash the machines. Far from it. Their actions are highly procedural and deeply democratic. They're essentially acting as civic auditors. Their very first demand is just simple accounting. They want the hidden non-disclosure agreements torn up. They demand moratoria on new builds to give towns time to actually study the impacts. They want guarantees for ratepayer protection because no local family wants to end up subsidizing grid upgrades for a trillion-dollar tech company. They demand strict zoning controls, cumulative impact reviews for when multiple facilities cluster together, and workload transparency. In short, they are asking a very reasonable question. Before a town signs away its water, land, and power, what exactly is the public getting in return?
And if we map this out chronologically, you can really see how this movement has escalated over time. Back in 2015, Ireland's data center power usage was at a manageable 5%. But by 2019, major hubs like Amsterdam and Singapore had actually paused new growth entirely due to resource strain. By 2024, Ireland's usage had skyrocketed to that massive 22%, and in a real landmark moment in 2026, voters in Monterey Park, California didn't just pause a facility, they approved a permanent ban on a 250,000 square foot data center through a ballot measure. What started as early warning signs has hardened into durable municipal land use law.
That leads us to Section 5, the industry responds.
So we have to ask, how does the other side view this? This is a highly complex negotiation over the future of our digital order. And we need to examine it impartially because the tech giants have powerful arguments of their own. While the ADCM demands disclosure and local veto power, the industry answers with the undeniable necessity of digital infrastructure. They argue these centers bring critical economic development, construction work, and essential tax revenue. They frame this as a vital matter of national AI competitiveness and cloud sovereignty. And to counter the environmental concerns, companies like Google and Microsoft are rolling out water-positive pledges, proposing advanced air cooling systems, funding local renewable energy projects, and even suggesting schemes to reuse server waste heat to warm local housing. It is a massive, high-stakes tug-of-war between the insatiable demand for global computing and the finite reality of local ecosystems.
Because of this tension, we're seeing a brand new life cycle of infrastructure development emerging. Here's how it usually goes. Step 1. The industry quietly proposes a generic cloud facility, often obscured behind NDAs. Step 2. Local citizens catch wind and demand public accounting. Step 3. The industry, feeling the heat, returns with resource pledges and community benefit brochures. But Step 4 is where the real shift happens. Communities are increasingly refusing to accept mere promises, forcing those pledges into binding, legally enforceable governance with metrics and penalties. The movement is successfully dragging the industry out of secrecy and into the bright light of public scrutiny.
Finally, Section 6, public versus private compute.
This is perhaps the most profound philosophical distinction the movement is making. You see, the ADCM does not hate computing. Modern society obviously relies on digital infrastructure. But the movement argues there is a massive difference between public interest compute and private hyperscale. Think about it. A hospital needing secure data networks, a public university requiring a research cluster, a library archiving local history. These are computations serving a clear, undeniable public good. Conversely, a massive private AI megacampus designed purely to train proprietary models for market dominance follows a completely different logic. The movement's stance is that a private hyperscale facility shouldn't automatically be granted the fast-track permitting, massive tax subsidies, and priority grid access that essential public infrastructure deserves. They are fundamentally different claims on our shared physical world.
Which leaves us with this final, critical question. The cloud is no longer weightless. Every prompt, every synthetic image, every scroll traces back to a very real river, a real utility bill, and a real neighborhood. The industry insists that these massive AI factories are necessary for our future. But if they are necessary, necessary for whom? Governed by whom? And ultimately, when the local aquifer runs low or the grid maxes out, who is really paying for the weight of the cloud? It's a question every single one of our communities will soon have to answer. Thank you for joining this explainer. Keep asking the hard questions and keep looking behind the screen.